Hello, dear learners. Welcome to Exploring and Understanding of How Research Supports Yoga for Mental Health. Let's set forth on a journey of exploration, gently weaving the threads of research into the fabric of our own knowledge and skills. So, whether you're a therapist, teacher, or simply a seeker of knowledge, I invite you to embrace these moments with a sense of gentle curiosity and openness. I'm your host, Judy Thompson, and in today's segment, we will be exploring the publication Implementing Trauma-Informed Care, Settings, Definitions, Interventions, Measures, and Implementation Across Settings, a Scoping Review, published 2024 in the journal Healthcare, authored by Lane Lauge Bering, Tina Holm, Jens Peter Hansen, Christian Lai Delkeman, Rika Sondergaard, and Jacob Vidjalm. Today we'll explore trauma-informed care, a valuable approach to being human that reaches deep into the heart of healthcare practice, shifting perspectives from symptomatic treatment to understanding the whole person and the backdrop of their life experiences. It's an approach that demands sensitivity, compassion, and a recognition of trauma as a pervasive element that affects not only patients and clients, but also the fabric of healthcare organizations. The essence of trauma-informed care lies in its foundational principles: safety, peer support, collaboration and mutuality, trustworthiness, empowerment, and cultural awareness. These tenets serve as guideposts for creating a supportive environment that validates and acknowledges the effects of trauma on overall health. Safety, both physical and emotional, becomes the cornerstone of trauma-informed care, ensuring that patients and clients feel secure in their interactions with healthcare professionals and within the healthcare setting itself. Trustworthiness requires clear communication with maintaining boundaries and consistent practices that build a reliable bond between patients and clients and providers. It is essential in establishing a care dynamic where patients and clients feel they can share their stories without fear of re-traumatization. Empowerment is the ultimate goal, enabling individuals to take control over their healing journey, make decisions, and have choices respected. Collaboration and mutuality stress the importance of democratic and equal-based interactions. It emphasizes that everyone has a role to play in the healing process, and every voice is critical, including patients and clients, families, and healthcare providers alike. There's a shift from "what's wrong with you" to "what happened to you," a fundamental change in questioning that opens a gateway to understanding the whole person, not just their diagnosis or symptoms. Trauma-informed care also addresses the need for care providers to have a workforce that is educated, supported, and resilient. This is because burnout and secondary traumatic stress, also known as compassion fatigue, are genuine concerns for those in helping professions. Thus, trauma-informed care promotes practices that care for the caregivers, facilitating an environment where the health and well-being of everyone involved are nurtured. Trauma-informed care is not merely a methodology or a set of techniques. It's a cultural change, a profound transformation in how healthcare services relate to and treat those who walk through their doors, carrying the weight of their traumatic experiences. It's about integrating the knowledge of trauma's impact into every aspect of healthcare delivery and skillfully tailoring practices to meet not just the physical, but also the psychological needs of individuals. This introduction to trauma-informed care sets the stage for exploring a paradigm that honors the complexity of the human experience and heralds a more compassionate and effective approach to health and healing. Traumatic experiences are pervasive, often leaving indelible marks on individuals' physiological and psychological well-being. And in recognizing this, a surge of studies has focused on the implementation of trauma-informed care as an approach that is sensitively attuned to the prevalence and impact of trauma. Trauma-informed care approaches suggest that by understanding the deep-seated ramifications of trauma, caregivers and healthcare institutions can apply strategies that foster safety, empathy, and empowerment, thereby enhancing patient and client care and staff well-being. The exploration into the application of trauma-informed care reveals a broad spectrum of interpretations and implementations reflective of the diversity of healthcare settings. Trauma-informed care's principles have found relevance in psychiatric facilities, hospital settings, educational institutions, social service agencies, and also local community small businesses like psychotherapists, school counselors, yoga therapists, and yoga studios. With more than 3,000 empirical papers spanning 2 decades, researchers have delved into the dynamics, merits, and challenges of trauma-informed care application, converging that while trauma-informed care's foundational principles are generally upheld, the specifics of its deployment vary significantly. Recent reviews show that while the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand lead in volume, emerging research indicates an international interest from other European countries where coercive measures in psychiatry are met with calls for human rights-based care. Studies into trauma-informed care application suggest the need for a dual focus in application. First, in the nuanced tailoring of training programs to specific populations served by institutions, which highlights the importance of specificity of approach in regards to context and environment. And second, in the essentialness and advocacy for integrative approaches for both frontline caregiver well-being, as well as the regulatory and administrative frameworks, which sustain the core of the healthcare environment as a whole. Trauma-informed care implementation relies heavily on ongoing and thorough training to prepare staff to ask appropriate questions and respond in ways that avoid further trauma. Training methods are being condensed into short online modules and stretched into extensive programs to ensure quality without overspending time, but analysis of trauma-informed care research reveals a clear discrepancy between the excitement for the idea and the challenges of applying it effectively. Research calls for consistent methodologies and standards to transform trauma-informed care from a theoretical buzzword concept into a reliable, quantifiable healthcare practice. Trauma-informed care research highlights both the significant progress made and the urgent need for a standardized definition and methodology. But trauma-informed care is not merely a methodology or a set of protocols. It is a profound reimagining of a service provision that is rooted in an understanding of the prevalence and impact of trauma. At its core, trauma-informed care suggests that trauma is pervasive and its impact can steer an individual's life course. Acknowledgement of this is the first step in reshaping the lens through which care and support are provided. Integral to trauma-informed care are several key definitions that chart the territory for care providers. Foremost among these is a sense of safety. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA, impresses upon us the need for both physical and emotional safety. Next is the concept of trustworthiness and transparency. Here lies the commitment to make operations and decisions fully apparent, fostering trust. Trust is delicate and must be nurtured over time in every interaction and decision if trauma-informed care is to take root and grow. Along with these principles is the notion of empowerment. Trauma-informed care moves beyond treating symptoms to that of helping to empower individuals. It means recognizing the strengths and experiences of individuals and helping them to reclaim control over their lives. Trauma-informed care frameworks emphasize collaborative decision-making and working to help restore the voice and choice to those often silenced by trauma. Together, these foundational elements create a sanctuary of sorts, a caregiving realm where understanding and empathy illuminate new paths of growth. This reframing pivots the focus from the pathology to the person. In practice, trauma-informed care becomes both a map and a compass. It helps navigate the complex terrain of trauma and guides us toward a care model that is responsive, respectful, and ultimately restorative. While the theoretical foundations are clear, the actual impact of a trauma-informed approach depends on the practical embodiment of these principles in how they are communicated and applied by the healthcare provider. In exploring an understanding of the domain of trauma-informed care, a core element that requires our attention is the assortment of interventions and educational programs that have been developed to instill the principles of trauma-informed care within various organizational environments. To cultivate a trauma-informed culture, stakeholders must recognize the profound effects that trauma has on individuals, families, and communities, hence the necessity for training that equips staff with the competencies to offer compassionate and effective support. Intervention strategies vary widely, such as staff workshops, in-service training, and continuous professional development modules. These trainings are designed to address all aspects of trauma-informed care, from the basic neuroscience of trauma's effects on the brain to implementing strategies for fostering a safe and empowering environment. One example is the growing use of staff training seminars throughout organizations. These seminars create a shared understanding of trauma and its various effects. Interactive sessions dissect trauma's complexities, helping care providers spot signs of trauma in clients and colleagues, promoting an empathetic work environment. Other intervention strategies include trauma-focused therapies that become part of a service's regular treatments. Therapists learn methods like yoga-based practices, DBT, and EMDR, making these therapies a routine part of care, not just specializations at trauma centers. Coupled with these approaches are educational trainings that are designed to support a more well-rounded, integrative approach. These may range from short-term certificate courses to extensive multi-year trauma studies programs. It is also important to integrate peer support type roles within these training frameworks. By inviting in peer support, individuals with lived experiences of trauma can provide invaluable insights, turning educational programs into deeply resonant experiences for all participants. In addition to these training programs, organizations often embrace innovative therapeutic environmental changes, from sensory rooms that provide a calming to the senses, to the incorporation of art and music therapy as outlets for expression and healing. Trauma-informed environments can be facilitators to enabling growth and healing. To truly grasp the effects of trauma-informed care, we need to look at how its success is measured. It isn't just about ticking boxes or meeting targets, it's about real change in trauma survivors' lives. Various metrics assess how well trauma-informed care principles like safety, trustworthiness, peer support, collaboration, empowerment, and awareness around cultural and gender issues are adopted into the healthcare environment. An essential metric is client and patient feedback. Do they feel secure and understood in the care settings? Are their trauma experiences recognized and treated in a way that promotes healing? Client and patient satisfaction surveys, which include trauma-sensitive queries, offer vital direct feedback, placing those at the core of trauma-informed care. Another critical measure focuses on the reduction of adverse events within healthcare settings. This includes tracking indicators of a system's progress toward trauma-informed practices. The aim is to support the creation of a care environment that emphasizes psychological safety and respect for the individual's autonomy and dignity. Equally important is the assessment of staff attitudes and knowledge regarding trauma-informed care. Instruments like the Attitudes Related to Trauma-Informed Care, ARDIC scale, are used to quantify how trainings and reforms influence healthcare providers' views and approaches to working with trauma-affected populations. A shift in these metrics signifies a workforce that's not only educated on the principles of trauma-informed care, but also embodies these principles in their everyday interactions with patients and clients. An additional layer comes from the organizational perspective. How well has the facility, institution, or environment adopted trauma-informed care at a structural level? The tachometer, for example, is a tool designed to evaluate the extent to which organizations have implemented trauma-informed policies and practices. It's a crucial barometer for the shifts in culture and procedures necessary for a truly trauma-informed healthcare system. As trauma-informed care continues to be a focal point in mental health services, these measures and tools remain critical for its implementation. They are the benchmarks against which we evaluate not just the intention to do better for trauma survivors, but the actual fruition of those intentions into practiced, patient, and client-centered care that heals rather than harms. The ongoing use of these tools is creating a bridge between principle and practice, guiding healthcare towards empathy, understanding, and, most crucially, a care system that rehabilitates and restores. Implementing trauma-informed care represents a significant culture shift within any healthcare or social service organization. It requires everyone, from frontline staff to high-level administrators, to not only understand the concept of trauma-informed care, but to integrate its principles into every aspect of their work. That being said, This transformative process often encounters several hurdles. One frequent obstacle is resistance to change. Introducing trauma-informed care principles into existing systems challenges deep-rooted practices and calls for a reassessment of values and procedures. This can trigger discomfort or defensiveness, especially if staff members feel that their current practices are being critiqued or undervalued. To overcome such resistance, it is critical to foster an environment that promotes open communication, ongoing education, and clear demonstrations of the benefits that trauma-informed care offers to both clients and healthcare service providers. Another challenge lies in the adequacy and consistency of staff training. While trauma-informed training programs might exist, they may not be accessible to all team members, or they might not be comprehensive enough to instill a deep, actionable understanding of trauma-informed care. Additionally, high staff turnover can mean that continuous training and retraining is necessary to maintain a trauma-informed environment, further straining limited resources. Finally, there's the question of adaptability. Trauma-informed care is not a one-size-fits-all model. Different organizations, whether they are in mental health, substance use, child welfare, or physical healthcare settings, encounter unique challenges and population needs. Crafting an approach that fits a specific context requires not only organizational flexibility, but also the tools and frameworks that enable adaptability without losing the essential tenets of trauma-informed care. In the pursuit of establishing a trauma-informed culture, organizations will need to navigate these and other challenges with patience, persistence, and an unwavering commitment to the well-being of their clients and employees. In doing so, they can move toward systems where safety, trust, collaboration, and empowerment are not just ideals, but realities lived out in everyday practice. Real-life stories of how organizations implemented trauma-informed approaches help exemplify the universal potential of this approach of care. Here are a few examples. In education, a district reshaped discipline policies to echo trauma-informed tenets, moving from punishment to empathy and aid. The switch led to fewer suspensions and boosted academics and retention. The initiative armed teachers with tactics for trauma-tied behavior, fostering an environment where students felt recognized and valued. Similar progress occurred in emergency services, where a hospital team modified their care strategy, incorporating trauma-aware triage. This not only helped provide prompt care to those with trauma needs, but also enhanced resource use efficiency. Moreover, an organization aiding veterans with PTSD established peer networks, pivotal in building mutual trust and collective recovery. This effort resulted in empowerment and a stronger sense of community among veterans, aiding recovery beyond the clinical sphere. These examples can help provide a felt sense of understanding the multifaceted nature of trauma, while also underscoring the need for interventions that are adaptable, compassionate, and resolute in restoring control and hope to those affected by trauma. What is the future of trauma-informed care? The foundational principles of trauma-informed care have transformed countless lives and institutions, yet there remains much to be learned. Researchers are looking into how to best measure the impact of trauma-informed care on not only clients and patients, but also on the providers and staff within organizations. There is an intriguing challenge in identifying quantifiable outcomes that reflect the intricate changes trauma-informed care brings about within an organization's culture, as well as through individual well-being. The design of more sophisticated metrics and tools that can capture the nuances of trauma-informed interventions is essential. Another opportunity for future exploration is the intersectionality of trauma-informed care with other interventions and care models. Consideration is growing for how trauma-informed care can be integrated with evidence-based practices for specific mental health diagnoses, as well as aspects of addiction, homelessness, justice system reform, and education. This opens up the possibility for trauma-informed care to be a part of multimodal interventions, addressing the multifaceted nature of trauma and recovery. Scaling trauma-informed care across sectors represents an equally promising direction. The recognition that trauma is not confined to clinical settings necessitates the widespread adoption of trauma-informed care principles in all human services sectors and beyond. This includes embedding trauma-informed care into public policy, legal systems, corporate cultures, and community programs. As sectors outside traditional health and human services begin to understand the profound effects of trauma, the need for trauma-informed care becomes increasingly apparent. Thus, we are witnessing an unprecedented drive toward expanding the scope of trauma-informed care, with an emphasis on community-wide transformation. System-wide implementation initiatives aimed at creating trauma-aware cities, communities, and nations are already under discussion. These initiatives not only highlight the universality of trauma, but also the collective effort to address it. Trauma-informed care will expand, integrate more fully, and continue to be explored. We are at a key point in the development of trauma-informed care practices with a universal recognition of the importance of addressing trauma. With ongoing research and implementation in all areas of society, trauma-informed care will evolve beyond a care strategy to a lifestyle that promotes healing, resilience, and greater compassion. As we reach the conclusion of our exploration into trauma-informed care, let's pause to reflect on the key points we've covered in today's episode. We began by exploring an understanding of some of the core principles within trauma-informed care: safety, trustworthiness, peer support, empowerment, collaboration, and awareness of cultural, historical, and gender issues. These principles are not just theoretical ideals. They have the potential to revolutionize the way we provide care and foster healing. We considered the diverse landscape of research, highlighting the efforts made and the space for continued evidence and research and validation. The implementation of trauma-informed care is as varied as the settings it seeks to improve, from mental health facilities, hospitals, and schools, to communities and social services, but the variance speaks to trauma-informed care's adaptability and underscores the need for consistent definitions and methodologies. The journey towards a trauma-informed culture is complex, often met with resistance, yet essential. The measures used to assess trauma-informed care did more than gauge success. They offered insights into how deeply transformative practices can alter the lives of those they touch, reduce adverse outcomes, and restore dignity and hope. By highlighting real-world applications, we acknowledge that despite challenges, successful implementation is not only possible, but is successfully implemented in various corners of our society. Trauma-informed care is not just an approach, but a commitment to recognizing and responding to the pervasive impact of trauma and the unique manifestations it may display. As more people and sectors embrace trauma-informed care, we can look forward to research that further illuminates its benefits alongside the movement to envision, empathy, and compassion as cornerstones of care across all facets of society. As we close out today's discussion, I invite you to practice recognizing some of the key tenets found within trauma-informed care: safety, emotional and physical, trustworthiness, peer support, collaboration, empowerment, and awareness of cultural, historical, and gender issues, and being curious around how these tenets may show up, not only within your own belief system, but also being curious how they may be displayed within the hierarchy of your family and friends, as well as through your career and workplace, and very possibly also within your spiritual and religious ideals and values. Thank you to the authors and publisher for all of the research into this important topic of implementing trauma-informed care, settings, definitions, interventions, measures, and implementation across settings. For those eager to continue exploring, or for anyone seeking more in-depth information, additional resources and supplementary materials can be accessed within the links provided in the episode description. As we end our time together, remember to embrace and witness the beauty of life and within shared experience, Be the thread that creates compassion and curiosity for others. Thank you for listening. May you find and share beauty and peace on your journey toward wellness. Thank you for joining me on this journey through understanding how research supports yoga and integrative practices for mental health and well-being.